I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man Ant Walker here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. Very happy this week to introduce a new face, somebody you have not seen on the show, and I'm sure we'll have him on plenty more times. He is a staff writer at The Scrap, also the host of the Fight Podcast, the homie Serg Vicente. Serg, what's going on?
Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. Now I'm ready to talk fights, man. There was actually a whole bunch of fights this past weekend, so let's get into it, man. Gentlemen, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, of course, man. And you know the two guys at the bottom of the panel right here. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
I'm doing real well. You know, getting up at the crack of noon, a crack of 3 p.m. Sometimes takes a little bit out of me, but I'm just like overwhelmed by Serg's enthusiasm, and I am jazzed up to talk about this very full weekend of fights as well.
Absolutely. And of course, the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com, also my good friend, Jay Petrie. Jay, what's going on?
You know, I share Ben's feeling of Serg's enthusiasm, and I am energized. Like, no, straight up, I wasn't dreading it because I love this. This is one of my favorite times of every week. But like, I almost wanted my stat of the week just to be a number of how many friggin' fights there were this weekend, because it was just a lot. And it was to the point that I'm like, nah, I'm not going to count that because I'll just feel bad. I'll feel like I watched 73 fights. I don't want to do that because then I'll feel really bad because it probably was. So stat of the week, we'll go with Bellator stat of the week. 27. Yaroslav Amosov, welterweight champion, is 27-0. That is the best undefeated record by any current fighter in major MMA. All of them, all the promotions, all of them, because Khabib's out. He's the guy. He is the guy by a wide margin now. And I hope we talk about him very soon.
Yeah, I think your wish is going to come true there, Jay. We do need to talk about the Bellator card that took place in Ireland, I believe, over the weekend, Bellator 291. So I want to take things back to, first of all, let's just get the results out of the way. Amosov, he comes back from a year layoff, essentially literally fighting in a war, defending the Ukraine, his home country. He goes on to defeat Logan Storley in a greatly lopsided decision. Like, he totally outclassed him. There was not a moment that Storley looked like he had any control of this fight. And that was it. I mean, it was a total washing. As far as the technical aspects of it, I don't think there's a whole lot. I mean, to take away as far as there were no new wrinkles in Amosov's game to discuss, in my opinion. It just seemed like total athletic and technical superiority in every sense of the word. And that brings me to a tweet that my former colleague at the Body Lock, who's now PR for Bellator, Michael Fiedel, he put out a tweet. Let me make sure that I don't misquote this at all. So let me go back in my notifications where we actually engage with one another a little bit. He says, call me biased, but Bellator MMA can now arguably lay claim to promoting the best fighter in the world at 170, 185, and 205. A dominant performance by Amosov, who overcame so much to reach tonight's crowning moment, a 5-round masterclass. Last half of that, no debate, 5-round masterclass all the way. First half, though, warrants some discussion. Keeping in mind what Amosov did against Logan Storley, keeping in mind what Johnny Eblen just did a few weeks back, keeping in mind what Vadim Nemkov has been up to lately, does Fiedel have a point? Is Bellator promoting the best welterweight, middleweight, and or light heavyweight in the world right now?
No, but it's less ridiculous an assertion than it would have been at any other point in the history of that promotion. And ironically, for a guy who now works for Bellator PR, he could have leaned harder into it. I mean, Patricio Pitbull, I don't think he's better than Alex Volkanovski, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's the second best featherweight in the world right now. Like Bellator at the top end of the roster really does have just elite world-class talent that even I, as a member of the Sherdog rankings panel, I think we probably have Amosov underranked right now. I don't know that I would favor him over Leon Edwards or Kamaru Usman, but I don't think either of them blows him out of the water. And I have Amosov at least even with just about anybody else in that division worldwide, just by the eyeball test.
If I may interject, I'll be honest with you. I think Ben is right 1,000% when he's talking about right now more than ever. They actually have a case. They can make that argument, but in the reality of it, absolutely not. Are you kidding? No. Like if we go through the list and we look at it, I think Amosov is great, right? I think he is so technical. He gets dragged by the top 3 guys in the UFC's welterweight division. We go down, we look at Johnny Eblen. Johnny Eblen wants to sit there and say that he can go out there and he can take down and just ragdoll Adesanya and Pereira. I don't see him beating Marvin Vettori. When I go down to it, he's literally I think a less good Marvin Vettori. And then if we go up to 205, I mean, look, man, I really have faith right now in Jamal Hill. I think Jamal Hill is he better than I'm sorry, I don't know, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Yuri?
Yes, Yuri. I'm not saying he's better than Yuri, but I think the top guys right there, even including Glover Teixeira, might give Nemkov a run for their money as well, especially after we saw what Corey Anderson the first time. Second fight, obviously, we saw what happened. But after this, it's very difficult. Yes, they can make a case, but do they have the best in each one of these weight classes? No. I think it's unequivocally no. They're good though. I'm not hating on them. No stretch of the imagination. Being top 5 in the world is not a bad thing. I'm just saying you're not top 3.
And that's something that Bellator basically has never been able to claim, other than I can't think of anybody.
Douglas Lima, I think they had a legitimate case when Douglas Lima was the best welterweight there. I think they had a case for him being the best welterweight in the world. And I even think they probably even had a case when AJ McKee actually beat Pitbull, as maybe he's arguably the best 45er in the world. And even to this day, I still think he's probably the second best 45er behind Volkanovski, but if aside from that, I mean, it's hard between after those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pick at Mike. I mean, he's our friend, and we've had him on the show multiple times, and before the Bellator career, and he's a Bellator PR guy. So of course that's what he's supposed to say. But at the same time, there are really some serious legs to his argument that were basically never there before. I think the strongest case is Nemkov for being the number 1 light heavyweight. Over I don't see Eblen. I'm actually spot on with Serge about the Vettori comparison and the level of where Eblen is, just based on who he's fought and who he's beaten.
Right. And that's the reason I look at it that way. Just who he's fought and what he's beaten. That's who he is.
And that's why I struggle with Amosov. Okay, this is a really unfair thing for me to say. Amosov, his second performance against Storley made me think a lot worse about Logan Storley. It made me see him as incredibly one-dimensional, a front runner that if he doesn't get his way, he crumbles. And that's really, really cruel considering some of the good work he's done. What he did to Neiman Gracie was incredibly impressive. He played in the Neiman Gracie game and said, "I'm not afraid of you." The Michael Page thing was, very close. But it exposed his limits on the feet. There was a really big takeaway I had for Amosov is his takedown defense was different this time when he fought Storley, because even when Storley did manage to hit the takedowns in the first fight, Amosov was able to get up, wall walk, frame up, post, very easily and do that. He never even let Storley get that far. He never let Storley get on the hips. He would sprawl ahead of time as if he knew the takedown was coming beforehand. And yes, of course, it's going to be coming because Storley is the wrestler of wrestlers. But what he did to shut down Storley made me think worse of Storley than it made me think, wow, Amosov is the best in the world, because I looked at that and I thought Leon Edwards would have finished this guy. And this is Leon Edwards, who doesn't necessarily finish a ton of people. I mean, the head kick, of course, notwithstanding. But I thought Leon Edwards would have made him pay for the failed takedown attempts and would have finished him in like the 4th round or something like that. Usman would have thrown him out of the cage. You know, I think.
Yeah.
But and I'm going to favor in the lightweight title fight, which wasn't really brought up. I might favor the challenger maybe to be a pain, but it's a great roster. And you know what else? They didn't even mention the fact that Chris Cyborg is the champion. If Cyborg fought Nunes in 2 months, that's a coin flip for me. I'm not so sure Nunes is going to just punch through her like before. That's a pretty great claim to have 4 or 5 athletes knocking on the door of being right there, the best in the world. And I give Bellator a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're far removed from the days of like when Hector Lombard was dominating the middleweight division, and it was just a laughable notion that he stood a chance to do the same thing against like the top 3 in the UFC.
And
like
then we saw it,
and we saw him, and we saw him wash out at welterweight. You know, and we saw
saw him get dominated by Neil Magny.
Right. We saw
Kimbo
fighters,
like
that excelled in other promotions come over to the UFC and have middling results. Like guys like Michael Chandler and Eddie Alvarez are sort of the exception to the rule. Typically, the ones coming over after Pride was absorbed, they struggled for the most part. And you have your Strike Force guys like Luke Rockhold and Daniel Cormier. They were able to excel, but times have changed now. Bellator, for the first time, I think also what favors this argument, while I don't agree with everything in there, is the actual style matchups are quite favorable for like Johnny Eblen being a rather inexperienced mixed martial artist compared to his wrestling credentials and whatnot. Look at him against Alex Pereira. You might favor Pereira in that, but what a brutal style matchup that is for Pereira if Eblen decides to fight like he's got some sense. If he decides to not be Sean Strickland in that moment, that could be a rough day at the office for someone who is a career kickboxer. You look at Jamal Hill as the light heavyweight champ, and you know, assuming that Yuri Prohaska is just going to be gone for an extended period of time with the shoulder, Jamal Hill is our champion right now.
Yes.
Well, I mean, he showed a lot of great things against Glover Teixeira, but you think Nemkov doesn't have a chance to put his lights out? He's got the stronger strength of schedule, if you ask me. Nemkov, that is. So I think this argument holds so much more water than we realize. And even like the Leon Edwards and Amosov talk, I mean, that's essentially going to be like a kickboxing match between those two. They're not going to go for takedowns on each other necessarily. You wouldn't expect it, at least. Obviously, if Edwards tried to take Amosov down, if he has that takedown defense that he showed against Storley, there's not a chance in hell that Edwards gets him on his back. Man, that's kind of that becomes more of a coin flip. I still would favor Edwards to outpoint him, but man, that's a much closer fight than a lot of people would think if you say the Bellator welterweight champion versus the UFC welterweight champion. And perhaps this is just a small sliver in time. This could be, we could have this conversation in 6 months and we could see totally different faces across some of these divisions on one side or the other, if not both, and we'll have a different conclusion. But right now, like, this might be the strongest case that has ever been made for Bellator putting on the better, promoting the better fighter than the UFC. And what a great week to do that in general. Yeah. When we had a UFC card that was certified ass, that was ass across the board, that even the best part about that card fell out before it was showtime. Aside from Tatiana Suarez returning, not a whole lot to take away from that card as far as relevancy and what it means for divisions and whatnot. So what a great time to make that argument. So I think I don't agree with Mike, and I told him, hey, you're biased, but I don't necessarily think you're wrong. he's super biased. He should be, because Bellator is writing his paychecks. Shit, I'll be biased too if
Hey, Bellator, you guys want to cut me a check?
Hey,
I will come out here and say best organization in the world.
Man. Hey,
come on now.
Hey,
Scott's that dude.
I'll get that full-time check to say it, but this is the strongest case that can be made at this moment, and maybe we'll revisit this pretty soon and come to a different conclusion. But right now, I can't call Mike wrong. I really can't.
The only thing that really puts a pebble in their shoe are the other divisions, and that's of no affront to like Liz Carmouche. I mean, she's a great fighter, still doing what she's doing now. But we saw her fight Valentina Shevchenko. Well, no, I take it back. We saw her stand in the cage for 25 minutes against Valentina Shevchenko. And you look at the other unlisted champions, and who are they? They're all UFC castouts. Carmouche, Sergio Pettis, Ryan Bader. And so it's tough, because there are moments, but like you can stack up some of them, but then the other divisions fall so you're like, I think
35 is compared. Like 35 is one. Granted, I think the UFC's 35 division is so stacked.
Yeah,
but I think 135 pounds, damn near across the entire sport, is the best division in weight class that there currently is. Because if we're looking at even what they have, they were Rafion Stotts, Sergio Pettis, Horiguchi. Those guys, they can all go. That is the deepest division that Bellator currently has, and I think that's what the biggest issue is. We can easily say, yes, at the top of the division, yeah, they're great. But the reason that I can't fully buy into it is because the lack of depth, and we just don't know. When I see it, like, I don't know how these guys are going to go out there when they are, again, I'm using the eyeball. I have to use the eyeball test for all of them, because at the end of the day, I'm not seeing them consistently against the best competition that's out there. We're not doing that. So it's one of those things that this could be true, but Bellator right now, in my opinion, it's not even the lack of depth. They have a promotional issue. They're not telling me. They're not getting me excited about any of these guys. And the fact of the matter is, if they're not getting me excited about it, and we're not seeing these fights happen, how am I going to have even an opinion about their champions? We barely know when they fight.
Okay, can't fault you on that. I'll throw a counterpoint though, and I'm gonna talk about this UFC card that just happened. That's the level of product we're getting from the UFC right now. If you've ever look at a UFC fight card, of course we've got this mega event coming up in a couple days that we obviously are going to get to before we wrap things up today. But you look at a card like we had Saturday from the UFC, the card we had the week before that, if I'm not mistaken, the week before that as well. I mean, just bottom of the barrel as far as the quality of the product. Sure, there were some good fights. Sure, there were some positive things to take away from all of them, but that happens on regional shows all across the world. So what was the difference between that and going to like the local barnyard and watching a few guys out the crowd like slap each other around for a little bit? And I shouldn't have said slap, because
I was just as soon as you said it.
I shouldn't have said slap. Yeah, I shouldn't have said slap. But you feel me? You feel what I'm saying here? That's the problem. He puts more attention into slap fighting than he actually does the actual roster and what's happening in the UFC currently. I say this, save for these sort of, I guess what Bellator would call their tentpole events, save for like the UFC equivalent to a tentpole event like we're going to get this Saturday, on a week-to-week basis, it's harder to care about the UFC. And at a time like this, when Bellator fighters and fighters in other promotions, I mean, we're going to talk about Lineker and Andrade in a second here too. When we're seeing fighters in other promotions put on these great performances, even if they don't as consistently get some of the best names against them, it's harder to not have that in your mind when you're trying to compare the product of what's supposed to be the gold standard for mixed martial arts in the world. It's very difficult. So if there is any doubt about the UFC's, the quality of UFC fighters compared to other promotions, it is the UFC's fault right now. It is their fault. They are the ones who are putting on this sort of silly renditions of like literally long commercials for the Contender series. It's essentially what we've gotten lately. They are infomercials for the Contender series that we keep seeing. And if we keep seeing that, and then we have Amosov put on the performance that he did. Then we have Andrade put on the performance that he did. Oh man, it's very easy to start
Best
confusing the
performance of the
narrative at
weekend.
that point. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's go ahead and any other thoughts about that before we keep things pushing and talk a little bit about ONE's event on Amazon Prime.
One, and it was actually to put Duffy on the spot. Do you remember for last week when you were doing the preview, how many fights had Contender Series fighters in them? Was it all but 2?
I mean, 9 of the 11 fights had at least one Contender Series rep in them.
I mean, that's a UFC fight card, and there were some that weren't there. I don't remember how many. That's why I'm asking you.
There was at least one that was Contender Series versus Contender Series.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the UFC card coming up this weekend has 6 undefeated fighters on it, and that's not even counting Jon Jones, who should be undefeated.
Jeez.
Yeah. Well,
He is undefeated. We all know.
just that. Do not disrespect Matt Hamill's elbow defense right there. He used his face perfectly to block those elbows.
Yeah.
I've never felt worse for a guy. Like, it was one of those moments that I was just like, my empathy meter went up. I'm like, man, this dude can't hear nothing, and he just got bludgeoned this way, and it was terrible. It was terrible to watch.
That was rough. All right, so let's keep things pushing a little bit here. ONE had their 7th event on Amazon Prime over the weekend. There's overall thoughts on the card before we talk about the main event and how great it was actually. So, what were you guys' thoughts watching this event?
ONE's getting lucky. That's how I'm actually seeing it. I watched the whole card, and there wasn't a lot of amazing things that happened until the end, in my opinion. I mean, the grappling match with Danielle Kelly was fun. The kickboxing was okay, fine, but they got lucky when the last 2 fights happened, when Tawan Chai got out there and basically said, yeah, I'm going to kick you once and you're going to not be able to walk anymore, and just deadleg the guy, Yusupov. And then the main event, which I had reservations about the main event because I saw it play out before. I wanted to make the comparison, but we didn't have the show last week because it's okay. But what I wanted to make the comparison was Andrade Lineker was like an upscaled version of Davison Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, in that Lineker has resounding, hooking impact and power. One shot, boom, he can knock you on your backside. But when Andrade was landing on Lineker, he was stinging him, he was catching him, he was making him look twice. We talked about that, especially in the up ahead of the third Figueiredo Moreno fight. In that the Moreno looked like he got dropped 3 times, but it almost seemed like Moreno was hitting him harder, but for the resounding booms that Figueiredo was landing on him. And I looked at this fight and I thought the same way. I thought that Lineker could knock him off his feet, but he didn't seem to be able to hurt him. And that was shocking. Like, I don't understand actually how Andrade was able to take those shots cleanly, flush, especially the first 2 rounds to the body. Like, he was hitting a stone wall. I truly couldn't believe how Andrade was not budging, not flinching. Like, okay, fine. Lineker's power may be overstated as he's moved up in weight because people can take the shots. But wait a second. He cold-cocked Bibi Fernandez. He absolutely blew away Troy Worthen. He smashed Kevin Bellingon. So Andrade was just like, he was serious. I've made this comparison several times. He was the James Bond henchman that just goes, ha, 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 when he was hitting him, and he wasn't flinching. That was my most surprised takeaway, is how is Lineker hitting this guy so hard, as hard as we know Lineker hits people, and not even a budge?
I'll tell you how
Acai was strong within him. That's why.
Dudes.
I'll tell you, by my initial, because I kind of was thinking the same thing, and then I had a flashback to Brock Lesnar versus Shane Carwin, and how Carwin is unloading and unloading and unloading, and Brock is sitting there taking it and taking it and taking it until he doesn't have to any longer. And that's what I saw. I saw Lineker, especially in the first minute and a half or so of that first round, just throw everything he could full power, everything, heavy pressure,
40
and
body
then,
shots.
And
Good
then
ones.
after that, yeah, and really good ones.
Yeah.
But then after that, it tapered off a lot.
Yep.
After that, the look in his face changed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different person that was in front of Andrade at that moment. And that's to me was like Andrade saying, okay, I'm getting hit, it hurts, but each one hurts less than the one before. So endure, and this one hurts less, and this one hurts less, and so on and so on and so on, to the point where by the time that fight was stopped, Lineker was essentially totally ineffective. You know, what I saw from Lineker was maybe it was partially the result of the weight cut that he didn't do because, you know, hydration tests, or perhaps it was the responses from Andrade and maybe a frustration or the animosity between the two when he sort of blew his wad early or whatever. I think that Lineker ran out of steam very quickly, and he spent most of that fight trying to recover what he could, collect himself, collect his breathing, have these spurts of offense, but it just wasn't enough for the consistency of Andrade. Yeah. And every spurt of offense got less and less effective till toward the end, he withered away to nothing. My take.
And just to pop in, Andrade would touch him just about 1-2. And Lineker would, you know, it wasn't like an exaggerated effect. It was oh, ouch. Oh my gosh, that hurt way more than it was supposed to hurt. Whereas never happened. Lineker's best strike after like the first 2 minutes was his jab.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's those guys, those lean guys, you know, that are those sharp punches. He's lean, he's long, he's landing those sharp punches, and he always lands them at the very end. He's not overextending, he's not catching you short where he's like he's stifling himself. No, he's catching them all the way at the end of these strikes. And you can tell Andrade hits hard. He has to hit hard because every time he hits them, there were such sticky shots. You guys know what I mean when I'm talking like those sticky shots? Everything that he caught him with really was affecting him. And it was almost one of those things like we're watching a video game. I'm looking at their bars, right? Their power bars at the top. Every time he was getting, Lineker was getting hit, his bar kept on going down. Now, granted, he might have got hit, and it was one of those big ones moved every time he landed something. But it was these consistent shots, kept on taking his power down, down, down. And I'll be honest with you, that was a great stoppage. I'm happy that they did it. I'm happy that I'm starting to see more of that in MMA and combat sports in general. But salute to Andrade. And in terms of the card itself, or the original question in terms of the card, look, man, I love what ONE is doing. Was it their best of their cards? No, I don't think it was definitely the best, but one thing that they do that I really do appreciate is they're such an alternative to the UFC. They're such a great alternative because they're essentially saying we are the martial arts promotion. We have wrestling, we have kickboxing, we have Muay Thai. I love that so much. And for me as a fan of martial arts and not just MMA, every aspect of it, I'm intrigued. So those cards that they put together, and they do put talent, granted, some of us might not know some of these guys' names or anything, these random kickboxers and stuff, but when I'm looking at the quality of it, and again, we're looking at something like the quality of what the UFC just put out, right? Like you can tell the difference level of quality in the athletes, and even it seems like how much care they put into the product itself. I thought it was a good show, not the best of their ONE on Prime shows, but I mean, Jay, you said it yourself. I mean, they definitely got lucky with the main and co-main event because they really delivered.
For sure. Ben, any thoughts on ONE that you want to share before we keep things pushing?
I think John Lineker's one-shot power is one of the single most overrated tools in MMA history. It is built on him plunking bad fighters in the UFC after blowing weight 10 years ago. That power, and it stood out because he was almost the first guy in that weight range that had that kind of one-shot power. I mean, John Dodson came in that same gate and carried that same reputation, for such a long time for the same reason. There were almost no people that small that did have any kind of appreciable power, but once he finally moved up to 135, that power became like a ghost of a myth of a rumor, and at 145, it's even more so. His power is way overstated at 145, and it's going to get some more play now because he like knocked the 500-year-old like zombie body of Bibiano Fernandez back into the grave. But I mean, this fight, Andrade versus Lineker looked like some dude finally getting revenge on his like abusive alcoholic uncle at a family cookout after like 10 years of getting beat up by him. Like Lineker looked like he could have been Andrade's dad, and he's only 32 years old. He's one of the most prematurely
Lineker's only 32.
John Lineker is 32 fucking years old.
I thought he was every bit of 40.
Okay, exactly. And you think that just because one, he's been a marquee fighter since he was like 21 years old, and two, it must be like the weird like weight cutting and unweight cutting and hydrating and unhydrating has just aged him before his time. But he looked like he could have been Andrade's dad. Yeah. I mean, I don't say this easily on a weekend that we're about to see Cody Garbrandt fight, but he's one of the most prematurely shot fighters I've ever seen. And he's shot from never having been that good. So, I mean, fair play to Andrade, but it just makes me want to see him against like legit fighters. I could see Andrade just kind of falling into the same vortex that actually ate up the end of Fernandez's career, where he fought Kevin Bellingham like 4 times in 4 years.
Yeah. I can, that's a very good point. I can absolutely see that happening. But I do have faith in, and again, maybe I'm overstating it. Maybe I'm being a super idealist when it comes to, one. I feel like they have some really solid guys out there. But no, I agree with you. It's I could absolutely see before you know it, he's fighting Lineker 2 more times. Mm-hmm. And I could absolutely see that happening.
That's it. That's sorry, Ben. That's really it. It's you're right, Serge. They have some great guys, but it's like, how we talk, like we were talking about Bellator before. We're like, their top guys are elite, except for bantamweight. Bantamweight's fire. And lightweight's got some good, but you go and then you're like at middleweight, and then, oh my gosh, number 7's Charlie Ward, and you're really kind of in trouble there. One's like that. One is here's one's problem, and you said it, so I'm going to say it again. Andrade's going to have to fight Lineker 1 or 2 more times, because that's it. Because Lineker's going to go knock out, I don't know, Shannon Weirshire, whoever, I don't know what weight class they're in. They're just long people in the head.
Don't fight Bibiano again.
You probably, and then be like, okay, yay. Sorry, man. Go
I can see that. No, I can definitely, that makes sense.
Well, yeah, all the promotions, like including the UFC, they have their plug and play part. Like if the UFC needs somebody on short notice, I mean, well, up until about a year ago, it was calling up James Krause and saying who you got that can make 145 in 6 days. But the UFC's plug and play part now is somebody who won or maybe even lost on the Contender Series, but they know they can get that guy for 10 and 10 if they need a plug and play part. But your plug and play part in PFL is a dude with a 17-letter last name and a 4-guard all around the head that's going to wrestle and like suck 15 minutes away from my life. The plug and play part for one championship is a Sanda practitioner from Team Lakai. It's just bring me the next Filipino dude that like fights karate style and would be like,
and wears the same shorts,
and any American wrestler would like paint the canvas with this guy, just basically turn the cage floor into like avocado toast by grinding this guy into it.
Hilarious.
That's what Fabricio Andrade is going to be fighting for the next couple of years. Fucking kill me.
Maybe we'll get lucky and he'll have a super fight with Shumi Aoki.
I hate to quote Colby Covington. I hate quoting Colby Covington, but one of the last funny things he ever said was when Ben Askren was about to come to the UFC, and he made a comment about how it'll be a nice change from fighting in front of 15 people in an Asian bingo hall.
That is good. That's a good one. And I don't like laughing at Colby jokes. You got me, Colby. You got me on that one. That was good.
It's like the one good line he ever had there. That's all right. Well,
he had to stop when he was ahead. He didn't.
Yeah. Nope. No, he kept digging.
If that was the only thing he ever said, then GOAT status. We're talking about he's the greatest welterweight of all time.
All time.
But nope.
Nope, he kept talking.
Nope.
All right, fellas. So I'm going to put 10 seconds on the clock, and I'm going to ask you mofos some questions. So first up, for Serg, is Brendan Allen ready for prime time, or did Andre Muniz take him lightly?
Andre Muniz took him lightly. Is he ready for prime time? Absolutely not. Do we know who else is at 185? I'm sorry. He's not that guy.
All right. Good answer there. Okay, now next up. Who's gonna give the best answer for this one? Ben, you might have some gold for this one. Has Jordan Leavitt twerked and grinded his way into your heart?
No.
Did he twerk and grind his way into your pants?
Never. Nope.
Just great comedy.
Man.
Wasted.
No love for the zesty king.
He walked out to Pretty Ricky. Oh my
no
God!
love for the zesty.
No.
The zesty king gets love from me.
He had the Titanic lift or whatever.
Oh my God! Great comedy. Wasted. Thank you, Ben.
Well, sorry. I'm back.
All right. Jay, what will Philip DeFries need to do to get respect as KSW champ?
You know what? He's not going to need to. He's going to do it. He's going to fight Alistair Overeem in June, and he might knock him out. And there's your respect.
Oh, I like that answer,
dude.
It's actually. I'm not making this up. Yeah, it's actually the fight that's probably going to happen.
If Phil DeFries beats Alistair Overeem,
I'm just saying.
I'm going to question all my life choices. I might have to go look for a new job.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
He's gonna have to go to the UFC to get respect. Who the hell watches KSW?
This guy. It was a.
I watch
party.
KSW.
KSW's dope. Yeah.
No. We
fair.
will watch
right.
KSW.
Okay, all right.
I got you.
We watch random Muay Thai fights in some bingo hall basement without a problem. Who else is gonna do that?
Polish people.
You put together like a Grand Prix of major MMA promotion presidents. Martin Lewandowski, like low key, sneaks pretty far into that bracket.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No doubt.
Yeah. Definitely. Probably out of the promoters that I've spoken with, he's probably the easiest one to talk to. Like, just have a conversation without some sort of horse shit involved. But anyway, I mean, promoters. Let's not go down that train. All right. I'm
going to ask Ant a question because I feel
please.
like you need one. First I'll ask, did you see the Trevor Peek fight?
Yes, I did.
Did you see that fight?
Yes, I did.
It sure was, wasn't it? All right. Simple question. How many more fights do you give him until he gets wiped out?
It really depends on what Jesus wants at this point. Because only the Lord could have blessed those whatever fists, those twisting hammer fists, or the I don't know. I want to call them the magic wands.
They're like you almost want to rename them to hammer fist because it looked like he had a hammer in his hand hitting the guy. Dude, okay, fine. Let me revise that question. Ant Walker, how many fights until Trevor Peek fights Jim Miller?
Could we save that for UFC 300? I'd say yeah, 2 sounds about right. I mean, the thing is, Jim Miller is going to put himself up for a late notice replacement at some point very soon. Yeah, so the thing is,
he's been fighting those guys. That's what I mean. The 2-1-0, 2-0.
Will Trevor's pastor bless the short notice replacement though? That's the question.
Yes, because Jim Miller has a mullet, and he'll think he's one of the tribe.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where to take this. I just want to quote. I want to quote the good book to lead me further down this rabbit hole. Dude, Trevor Peek is going to get absolutely wiped. Oh my God! He's going to be sleep by the time this year is over with. Or you know what? No, put him against Paddy Pimblett. I don't care if the weight classes match. I don't care about any of that.
They do. We're 155ers.
Yeah. Well, Pimblett is he supposed to be going to 170 soon, or?
Oh my God, he better not.
I hope so. Actually, I hope so.
That's a
terrible
poor choice.
Well,
That's
just so he can
bad
eat,
idea.
so he can eat more. That's all I was thinking about. But yeah, I put him against Paddy Pimblett, and then loser goes home.
He would
I
make
think the Paddy
Pimblett look
experiment,
like prime Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Pimblett's whole problem right now is that he spends too much time fucking around on the feet and gets rung up by inferior fighters.
He would get his bell rung though. You know that he get plunked and then he'd get back.
Yeah, it would actually be a competitive fight.
It would be a very competitive fight because Buddy's not going down right away. And if you're going to have two guys with their chins way up in the air just throwing shots at each other.
Yeah.
And because of that's the way that they're going to go into it, you have anyone could any one of them can fight and win. Any one of them could win, and you're absolutely right. Loser goes home. Bye.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I want to happen.
Yes.
All right, fellas. Now I would put a minute on the clock. I should just for the sake of consistency, but for the sake of consistency, we're going to disrespect this minute. So let's go ahead and throw this question out to the floor. It's open for any one of you to jump on this topic first. Do you like Tatiana Suarez at flyweight, or should her future exclusively be at 115 pounds? Jay, I have an idea what you're going to say.
Oh my goodness! I actually am going to go a different way. It was suggested on the Sherdog. We released the rankings, and the person suggested that Tatiana Suarez be eligible for pound consideration because she moved up in weight to fight and won. And let me tell you, I laughed out loud because this is Montana De La Rosa we're talking about. This is you know when the UFC is trying to hype somebody and they're an unranked hotshot up and comer, maybe they're like 3-0 in the UFC, and they put them against somebody who is not ranked and then suddenly has a 15 next to the name. Like, I don't know, Khamzat Chimaev fought Li Jingliang, and a month before Li Jingliang fights, he is ranked number 15 just by doing nothing in that span and then suddenly being ranked. Dude, when and I'm going to take some of Duffy's thunder. I won't take too much of it because he probably wants to say it. When Tatiana went for the first takedown and Montana didn't let it happen, oh no way! Run from 125 as fast as you can. Yes, you got the submission. Cool. But I don't want to see her fight anybody in the top 10.
Valentina takes her lunch money,
dude. Like.
A lot of them take their lunch money. She needs to stay far away from 25. She needs to stay far away.
Valentina takes her lunch money, picks her up by her ankles, and dunks her head in the toilet, and pushes a little flush handle with her foot.
Yeah,
she straight up gives Tatiana Suarez a swirly at 125. That's what I'm saying.
1,000%. Yo, she was 2 for 6 on takedowns this past week, and really struggled with like you said, that was that first takedown attempt. When I saw her just get stuck, I was like, oh.
And that was the strongest time. That was the I'm full blast, adrenaline going. I'm back, baby. Oh my God, I can't pick her up.
Look like you walked into a wall.
I'll give the slightest bit of pushback. I'd like to see her fight at 125 just one more time, because we do have to factor in ring rust. We got to factor in, and she was coming off of a bad neck injury and whatnot. Who knows what was going through her mind during that fight, or just her body getting, or body and mind connecting to get acclimated to the fight again. Give it to me one more time before I can make a determination. But if we're going to talk about just her fighting at flyweight altogether, like anyone who decides to fight at flyweight, depending on your name and your status, if you get 2 wins, you're going to get a title shot.
Yeah.
So her path to the belt could be presumably easier to at least to a title shot, could be presumably easier at 125. The only thing is, though, 115, this is a prime time to enter that fray, because we might finally be able to stop the round robin between Rose, Weili Zhang and Carla Esparza. If that round robin just might stop, and Suarez would be a great addition to that mix to really shake things up. So
I'd love to see her versus Rose. I would love to see that matchup.
Yeah,
I think that in itself is a great matchup if you put her down there. But when it comes to 125, she gets smoked.
Depends on how she gets matched up. And we know funny things have happened with rankings before. And at flyweight, it kind of doesn't matter because we're starved to see people to fight Valentina.
I think she might. I think Alexa Grasso might smoke her. To be honest with you,
we'll talk about that. We will talk about that. All right. So in fact, let's save that. Let's save that because we're gonna keep things pushing.
I want to get Ben. I want to get Ben.
My fault, Ben.
Well, she came back, looked good after 3 years off, and beating a solid middle of the roster flyweight who had been proven susceptible to getting physically bullied by stronger women. And you know, Suarez was not able to do that to her. She got the win. She was supposed to, but looking at that, I don't see a clear path to her for her to a flyweight title shot. Even if the UFC says, okay, let's strike while the iron is hot. Let's give her one top 10 fight. And if she wins by hook or by crook, she's getting the fight with Val. What is that fight? If they put her in the cage with Caitlin Chikagian, say they make it like a fight night main event just to make sure she has a 5-round fight under her belt, Caitlin Chikagian is going to throw 362 jabs at the air, and by the time Tatiana Suarez leaves that cage, she'll be 53 years old, and the Earth will have entered another ice age. Because that fight will feel 2,000 years long. And if you throw her in against any of the young guard that's come along since she's been gone, you throw her in there against Blanchfield or Manon Fior. I think she straight loses.
She doesn't watch Blanchfield right now. She absolutely gets mauled.
Way too legit matchmaking. Like way too legit matchmaking.
Then what do you do? Do you like peel Jessica I away from her OnlyFans?
Like I see her fighting like Jennifer Maya, just running to the wall.
Yeah,
that too. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I'm just like to get if she's gonna build herself up in strawweight, which she definitely can do, it's just gonna be more fights. It's gonna be more fights to get her to where we're talking about a title shot. But seriously, flyweight, you win. One win at flyweight has somebody who's a professional in this sport talking about putting her on the pound for pound list. This is such a what have you done for me lately game that it's not inconceivable to say, oh, she gets another win at flyweight. And especially if Valentina goes out there and just smokes, she smokes Grasso and say Blanchfield like stubs her toe in training. Yeah. Suarez could sneak her way into a title shot with one like pretty set up
decent win.
I know we need to talk about 282, but I'm gonna just dive in here. Michelle Waterson's like a top 10, top 11 fighter, and she's won one fight in her last 5. Like
Michelle Waterson was in Bully.
Michelle Waterson Gomez, she was. I think it's a way easier path at 115 because of the win she already has, and I think it's easy that way. And because she could plunk herself in right there, and the matchups are tasty. Like I would favor her against many of the women at 115, where I look at number 10 at 125 and go Andrea Lee and be like, okay, maybe that ain't good. Whereas I look at number 10 and I go Verna Jandiroba and I go, oh my gosh, she would just suplex Jandiroba. So
right.
Yeah, right. Good point there. And I wanted to add more names to this discussion. However, the UFC rankings site right now it is crazy.
Yo, what is going on?
Russia took over.
It is wild right now, and I don't know what's going on. So
I refreshed my computer a few times. I'm like, is this me? I was like, did I hit some Russian tab on my joint? Like, what is going on?
It's like Fedor's old guy, Vadim, is right now. He's like hacking the website. This is his revenge. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, let's keep things pushing here because we have to give some love to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not since we last met. There's a lot to choose from. Whole lot of fights, whole lot of stupid stuff happens in combat sports every week. And the floor is yours, Serge. What's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I'm not surprised Tommy Fury won. What is going on with everybody out here talking about Jake Paul? Did y'all not see his fights against Tyron Woodley when he threw 2 punches per round? Did we not see Anderson Silva would have beaten him if Anderson threw more than 3 punches a round, didn't take 4 of the rounds off? Did we not watch these fights? And it's just because my man was in Love Island, a fantastic show on my dad. Okay, great season also. Tommy killed it in that season. But how are we going to sit here just because of that and say he wasn't going to win? Yo, You guys are crazy. And that judge and all of the media personalities out there that want to say that Jake Paul won that fight, what are you watching? What are you watching? This is crazy. So that is my thing. I felt like Nate Diaz after that fight said, I am not surprised. That's how I felt after that fight. That is my whatever of the week. Yes. Tommy Fury winning. I'm not surprised.
I like it. I
That
like
ref
it.
though. That ref though.
That ref is the worst ref. He terrible job.
I didn't even watch. I saw the results, but I did not watch the fight yet. Like, that's part of the fights I need to catch up on, and I just did not have time. And it certainly was not going to get priority over actual fights. But I will check it out. And Serge, I love the passion. Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, obviously, I don't want to jump the gun too much since time permitting, we're going to talk about the fight. But this weekend, we are about to see Jon Jones return to the cage for the first time in just over 3 years. He's stepping up from light heavyweight to heavyweight. He's going to try to further bolster his case as the greatest fighter of all time, pound for pound. Obviously, coming in at heavyweight, the biggest question in a training situation is availability of training partners. And Jones has been kind of mum about his preparation for this fight. For the longest time, if you remember far enough back to when he was with Team Bomb Squad, he left from there, went to Jackson Wink. Famously, that created the schism with Rashad Evans. But it was the perfect synergy because at the time, Greg Jackson was just beginning to be seen as this kind of like tape study and fight planning genius, and Jones was the perfect pupil for him. And so there was never any question, where's Jon Jones training? What's he doing? He's not at Jackson Wink right now, at least not full time. He's been kind of mum about what he's doing, but his social media posts have shown at least a little bit of it. And the heavyweight bodies that he's brought in to work with him, this guy who is, again, coming back for the first time in 3 years, fighting a super elite heavyweight, he appears to be working with current UFC heavyweight Don'Tale Mayes and former UFC heavyweight Yorgan De Castro. I would say that's it. That's the tweet. But what is he going to pick up from these men that is going to help prepare him to fight Surreal God? I assume that Don'Tale Mayes will say, watch for the heel hook. And I assume that Yorgan De Castro will say, yo, can you hook me up with some tickets? Or can I borrow your Fight Pass login?
In his defense, Walt Harris is with him too, right?
And so is Green, Mo Green, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But still, I'm with
okay.
you
So
100%.
we've doubled down now. Now we have two bottom shelf UFC heavyweights and two former bottom shelf UFC heavyweights. All we've done is we've doubled the batch. Like it's like going to Golden Corral. Like, okay, it's not good, but there's more. There's a lot of it.
Was Juan Radams busy?
I can't wait to talk about this because we're going to get into it, I know. So I have my thoughts, but as of right now, brother, you and I are lockstep. Just, yes. Everything you said, double that.
I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons.
All right, Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I'm leaving the gloved sports and I'm taking them off to the other one because we need a palate cleanser, and I'm about to give you a palate cleanser. Volume warning, just to let you guys know. I'm going to adjust this on microphone. Alan Belcher is a heavyweight champion of the world. Yes, that's right. Alan Belcher had actually a pretty ridiculously fun slobber knocker with Arnold A.J. Adams in the main event of BKFC 36, I believe it was. Got dropped a couple times, got a really nasty cut that probably would have been stopped. Came back, knocked out Adams in a dramatic way. Ben is chomping at the bit to say something, and I'm so excited for what it is.
Is swole still a word we can use? Have you seen Alan Belcher recently?
235 pounds of steel.
His
I didn't
arms
even
are so
recognize
big
him.
that tattoo, it now looks like Hammerhead from the Dick Tracy movie.
and let me tell you,
I mean, the joke used to be that it was supposed to be Johnny Cash, but it looked like Rosie O'Donnell. It does not even look like a human anymore.
that tattoo is ripped like him.
He is terrifying.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah.
What a
He
nasty
went
knockout.
and he went through the ringer. I mean, it wasn't an easy one. And I was there for it every step of the way. You know, I wasn't rooting for anybody, but it's kind of a fun thing to go, what did you do to Alan Belcher? I don't know. You can,
Yeah, he
you
ate
can
Alan
kind of,
Belcher.
yeah, you can kind of make it up as you go along. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons, that Alan Belcher is a heavyweight champion in BKFC a couple years after retiring as a middleweight.
Alan
Slash
Belcher
light
got
heavyweight.
bit by a radioactive rhinoceros. He needed to like get in the ring at the end of that and just be like, Michael Bisping, you took everything I worked for, and like try to pull him over to BKFC.
Beautiful.
Yo, Alan Belcher is one of my all-time favorite fighters.
He's great.
Like,
He's awesome, dude.
He's
one of my
blast.
absolute. When you go back and just go watch some of his fights from like his early UFC fights and stuff, yo, just fun. I loved his style. I loved that he was going out there in the Muay Thai shorts when everybody else was doing, you know, the big ass board shorts. Like, I am an Alan Belcher fan.
It's like the guy who stood in front of Paul Harris and invited his legs to get tangled up
Exactly.
and beat the ever-loving shit out of him. What an amazing career just on that alone.
Yeah.
Like
Well, Paul
Alan
Harris
Belcher is
was
one of
the
the all-time
boogeyman.
great action fighters. And
Yeah.
that was amazing what he did. And that was probably the crown jewel of his career. And I guess until this past weekend.
Just been
So
crushing dudes in BKFC.
yeah, just
He has
absolutely
been
nuts,
crushing
man.
dudes over there.
To disrespect
he's
our
gonna
time
crush that
because
one guy.
we have a lot to talk about still. I'll give you one last bonus. Mike Perry versus Luke Rockhold. Yep.
That was
In
so
what?
going to be my I'm not surprised. And
Wait,
Really?
yeah.
did I miss something?
Seriously?
Yes. Is it official now? Because
Yes.
In
and no.
BKFC?
Okay, take it away. Aaron.
yeah, Eric at My MMA News, he put out a tweet I think this morning this morning or last night saying that he was getting word that Luke Rockhold was signing to BKFC. The announcement was going to be made today, and his first opponent will be Mike Perry. So that's a lot to take in. That is a lot to take in to
That's what
bring
she said.
in a guy. Yeah. To bring in a guy whose biggest flaw was his boxing defense and his biggest strengths were his kicks and his submission ability. And you put him and with that type of chin, and you put him into bare knuckle boxing. It
Against
might mess up
a
that
guy,
modeling career even more.
Perillo
Okay.
got some work to do.
and,
Tons of work.
dude, Luke Rockhold rocks himself shaving. Like, stepping in at BKFC against Mike Perry, a dude that pretty much the only thing he does well is hit stupidly hard. Like, he does everything stupidly,
Yeah.
but hitting stupidly hard is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
I-
It's
I-
like the part, like
is
being
the
stupid is his
perfect
advantage in that moment.
BKFC like guy. He is like
Yeah.
exactly what you want for this type of sport. I mean, shit, Alan Belcher is now too. Who would have thunk it? But I mean, Mike Perry is that dude. Again, not too many brain cells, hits dumb hard. This is what you need.
Yeah. And this feels like disaster written all over it. But
All
we'll still
over
be
it.
watching. So yeah,
I'm so proud.
I had
of you.
no idea. I did
you
not
were
see
gonna
that
take
this morning.
segment.
yeah, it was either that or the new Dana White media hit piece. And I'm gonna wait for that to come out before we
Did he
start
drop another
riding on that
media
one.
hit piece?
It's coming.
He said he announced that he's going to do one. He
coming.
told to Robbie
What
at
kind
Barstool
of
Sports.
lame? Oh, yeah. You know what?
Yeah,
I ain't
yeah.
gonna.
He's gonna. I mean, he's gonna treat the media like his wife. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, look, man.
That's all I'm saying. So, fellas, let's keep things pushing here because we have UFC 285 to talk about.
I'm excited.
There is if we had to name this event, what would you name it? If we were doing the old UFC Undisputed or whatever the case may be, what is the title that you'd give this event, fellas?
UFC, it's about damn time. That's what I would call this card. Jon Jones in 2013 teased going to heavyweight. It is 2023. Everybody's been double champs. Everybody's been doing X, Y, and Z. It has taken him 10 years to finally get to heavyweight. And it's been, 4 years since he's fought? It's UFC about damn time.
I was thinking UFC 285 bulking season. That was
Oh, that too. That works.
one that came to mind. Any titles you guys got, Jay and Ben?
I didn't like mine, but my best one I came up with was roll the bones.
I don't have one.
I was fishing.
I was UFC 285. Where's Francis? I don't know.
Ooh, that's a bet.
I don't know. All right, fellas. So we're gonna ask that age-old question: who you got? A premier welterweight offering third fight from the top. Jeff Neal versus Shavkat Ramonov. Serge, who you got?
Oh man. Here, let me pull this one up because I just who do I have in this one? I'll be honest with you. I got Shavkat. I think Shavkat's one of those dudes, even though I think Jeff Neal is great. I'm a fan of Jeff Neal. Hands of Stone, he is that dude. Shavkat is one of those dudes that I honestly believe. I thought if he actually was one of the guys that fought Hamzat, he had a very good opportunity to beat him at 170. I think this dude is, I don't even want to call him a dark horse of the division at this point in time. I think he is somebody who is a viable title contender at this weight class. He's well-rounded. He's tough. Dude is nasty. I think Shavkat does dirty, dirty things to Jeff Neal, unfortunately.
Jay, who you got?
My biggest difficulty in picking this fight is, does it go the distance? Because Jeff Neal is so durable. Like, the only time he's ever been knocked out is Kevin Holland. I think he was up at middleweight at the time. Many years ago, and like he got tapped out like a decade ago, like the beginning, you know, one of those fights, like you're like, oh, that does, like Volkanovski getting knocked out by a welterweight, you're like, yeah, it doesn't really factor into your analysis right now. You're not like, oh, Jeff Neal, boy, he sure got a Achilles heel right there, that back take, man, he's susceptible for it. No, you can't really see that. I know that Rachmanov's going to hit a wall. I mean, like, don't get it twisted. I am with you, Serge. I am higher on Rachmanov than I am for Khamzat Chimaev. I think the upside, what he can display for his skills, it isn't just entirely brute force smash. Not smash. It isn't the smash thing, which I think will actually carry him further. There's more technique. I mean, yes, don't come at me, Chimaev posse or whatever. Like, there's plenty of skill in his, but Rachmanov displays things with a finesse, almost an elegance. You're like, oh my gosh, where did that guillotine come from on Neil Magny? You know, like, what did he do to Cowboy Oliveira? Just boom, okay, it's over now. It's quick and it's smooth, and I very much like that. But it's so hard to count out Jeff Neal, especially after his last fight. That last fight for Jeff Neal, when he punched out Luque, made me think differently about, you know, when watching that again, made me think differently about, oh my gosh, Rachmanov's not going to blow through him. I think this might be the first time that Rachmanov goes the distance. I don't know. I think that might be the bolder call. I think because he's 16-0 with 8 knockouts and 8 submissions, which is, you know, that's pretty badass, actually. Yeah. I think that Neal will be in it, but just barely. Like, he'll be beaten to the punch. He'll land some good shots. He'll carry himself well, but I just feel like Rachmanov is just something special. And I see that he's going to not be able to, like there might be a moment where Joe Rogan will flip out and say that Rachmanov has the submission. He doesn't, but he's going to say that he does. And Jeff Neal's going to slip out. So there's going to be danger moments, but I'm going to go Rachmanov by decision here.
Ben, who you got?
It pains me to say this. I'm a Texas guy. I love Texas fighters, especially ones who stayed in Texas. And Jeff Neal is from Central Texas. He's from, you know, the Temple, Killeen area and stayed there. Like, you know, he's an OG at Fortis MMA, but, you know, was always stuck with Strikings, which is kind of a Central Texas, like, underground tip, you know, with like Crew Kasib Taylor. I love that about him. Mm-hmm. You know, it's why you never hear me like, you know, like out there for Rafian Stotts because he left Houston. Anyway,
that's my guy, man.
And Neal, I mean, and Jay was there One of the most terrifying things I've ever witnessed in person was an open workout for UFC 247, where they just had a bunch of Fortis guys come down, and I got to watch Uriah Hall hit pads from 5 feet away. It was terrifying. Like, I flinched, even though I knew in my mind I was safe, that Uriah Hall wasn't just going to snap and like Adam Sella me into next week. But the man holding those pads was Jeff Neal, and on his turn, for a man who was a weight class down, was like similarly terrifying. The problem is, all the things that Jeff Neal really does well are going to be short-circuited within 45 seconds of this fight. Jeff Neal is one of the best pure punchers in the UFC period, let alone at welterweight. Just great hand speed, natural power, and one of the few fighters that actually uses them to their best advantage by throwing straight punches in combination. It's a beautiful thing. But here's the problem. And normally MMA math is not infallible and half the time is completely irrelevant. But looking at both these guys' fights with Neil Magny is very instructive, because in both cases, it hinges on the wrestling. And Jeff Neal, to his credit, the wrestling against Magny was almost a wash. You know, Magny was able to get Neal down, but he had to work for it. Neal actually took Magny down once. You know, it was kind of a 60-40 thing. It wasn't a washing, and the fight was similarly competitive. Shavkat Rakhmonov ragdolled Magny, threw him around at will, and dominated once he was there. Just Magny was a drowning man, like fighting for air every second they were on the ground. And it was a bit of a moral victory that it even made it to the second round. Putting that MMA math together tells me that like Neal's beautiful combination punching is just not going to factor into this. And the question becomes, as Jay puts it, is he going to survive? And dude, if Neil Magny didn't, I don't know that Jeff Neal does. I think Rakhmonov probably throttles him in the middle round there. And it's going to be a complete wash. Like I see a 10-8 first round where the thing almost gets stopped multiple times and it's over in the second.
Hey man, and if you guys know anything about it, I am Mr. I cheer for everybody black. Rakhmonov going to whoop his ass.
Too many consonants in his name.
Yeah, man. Anybody who got too many of those in their names and they come out there with a fuzzy hat, I am not messing with them.
That's an extravagant hat too. That's not like the little puffy, like, you know, Khabib Papaha hat, the Ushanka dude. No. It looks like a whole fucking deer on his head. I love this hat. Like the hat rules.
Oh, it's awesome. Everything about his presentation is a shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm with you guys on the results of this. Rakhmonov should have an easy day at the office against Jeff Neal. The thing is, Jeff Neal, as good of a fighter as he is, he excels when it's someone who wants to engage in a particular sort of stand-up battle with him. When you add a nuance to it, like Wonder Boy did, very hard to get a read on, or for Neal to get a read on his opponent and do that combination striking that he likes to do and land those punches. Very difficult then. You put him in front of a Neil Magny who's going to mix up the disciplines. Very difficult for him to do what he likes to do. But you throw him in against a Mike Perry. You throw him in against a Nico Price. You throw him in against some of the guys who have more of that knucklehead strategy. They get flatlined, that's sort of the consistent theme that you can see throughout Neal's career. And Vicente Luque is very much of that ilk. He's very much of, like, he's high level. He's higher level than the other guys that I mentioned, but he's got that knucklehead mentality. Shavkat doesn't have that. That's a guy who's going to do what's necessary to get the win, and he's going to beat the hell out of you in the process, no matter what he decides to do. I see this fight opening up, Neal maybe landing one or two good things, and then he gets swallowed and he gets dragged and drowned. And I honestly will be surprised if this sees the third round. I think Neal gets finished pretty quickly. And let's be all the way real about the type of fighter that Shavkat Rakhmonov is. He is, if he were like outwardly like a jerk or like just a loudmouth, or
be the biggest name in MMA.
Yeah, if he had a flair to his personality in any regard, this man would be the darling of the UFC marketing machine. He would far exceed what Chimaev has become, in my opinion. If he had an ounce of personality that he displays in front of that camera. I think this is going to be the moment that a lot of people who aren't aware are suddenly like, oh shit, we need to watch this guy. This guy is the boogeyman of the division.
Yep.
Whether he reaches the mountaintop is a whole other story. We can debate about that all day, but we're going to have the opportunity to debate about that because he's going to propel himself off of this win that he gets Saturday against Jeff Neal.
Yeah, I second.
All right,
all
gentlemen,
for all you guys.
Well, of course. So, gentlemen, we've got something else to talk about. We've got a title fight. The aforementioned Valentina Shevchenko against Alexa Grasso. Flyweight title on the line. Ben, who you got?
I'm one of the people that thought Valentina Shevchenko should have lost to Taila Santos. The woman who had come in as like a minus 1,000, minus 1,200, minus 1,250 favorite in all of her title defenses. The one who was, I mean, the most dominant fighter in the sport, regardless of weight class or gender, looked human finally. You know, I pictured that Louis Gossett Jr. looking trainer from like Rocky IV, like shaking Taila Santos between rounds, like, look, she bleeds, she's human, you know? I feel bad that I can't remember his name. He just looked like Louis Gossett Jr. Duke. I meant his real name. Like it's the actor's name. But so my question now is, did we see things that Alexa Grasso could replicate? You know, like the same thing we said just a couple weeks ago when Alexander Volkanovski took Islam Makhachev to the wire. Great. Who in the lightweight division was taking notes saying, okay, I can do that? Not many. And Alexa Grasso is not the one. I'm sorry. We got two women here that are approaching this division from opposite ends. One who came down from 135, one who came up from 115. And while the tail of the tape is going to be similar, they're both 5'5". Their reach is going to be similar. They're both going to weigh 125 on the dot. Valentina Shevchenko is going to look like Alexa Grasso in a suit of armor. You know, up close, she is low key one of the fighters that I've most gone, wow, I can't believe you make the weight that you fight at. Like just having been in like an elevator with her at like the Fighter Hotel. And when Shevchenko can be the physical bully as she has been against everybody except for Santos, it's literally the dismissive sounding Shevchenko by whatever she wants, because she is that rare fighter who is probably the best striker and best grappler in her division. So unless somebody has rare physical advantages over her, it's dominance waiting to happen. Grasso would need to thread the needle. She's not proven to be a finisher at the 125-pound level against UFC level fighters, let alone championship level fighters. She'd have to like really be perfect and win 3 rounds out of 5 and convince the judges that she won 3 out of 5. That's not happening. The best I see for her is that she survives a drubbing and at least makes Shevchenko work for the takedowns that, you know, she'll use as a safety valve whenever she feels like it. But give me Shevchenko to win all 5 rounds here.
Serg, who you got?
I got the GOAT, Valentina Shevchenko. It's not even a question. Female GOAT, Valentina, is going to go out here and just, like Ben said, I think she's really going to do whatever she wants. I mean, if we think about it, what does Alexa Grasso do well? What is her bread and butter? It's her boxing.
Volume, yeah.
Nobody has better striking in that weight class than Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina is literally going to go out there. And then again, we're talking about a distance game. If we're talking about somebody who's predominantly a kickboxer versus somebody who's predominantly a boxer, oh, I got a better one for you. Who we say is the best, granted, she never really used it, but we'll say that Holly Holm is one of the greatest female boxers to ever cross over and come into MMA, correct? We could all essentially agree on that.
Yeah.
What did Valentina at 135 do to her? Just did whatever she wanted to, or was able to. The counter striking was just beautiful. She is so smart, so technical, and I'll be honest with you, she's one of those people that only can beat herself, in my opinion. I think a lot of people were saying about Jon Jones, for instance, what his fights against these last 3 people, he was bored. We can literally say the exact same thing to Valentina Shevchenko. Who are these women? Who cares? I'm not being pushed. I'm just going to drag them. Also, I think she's going to do some nasty to Alexa Grasso because she has 2 fights in a row where people are questioning her greatness. I think she's going to come out here with something to prove, and she's going to go beat the brakes off of Alexa Grasso. Because here's the thing, Alexa Grasso, the only thing that I have seen that can slow down Valentina Shevchenko is a bigger fighter, you know, and B, somebody who is really, really solid in their grappling. Alexa Grasso is neither of those two things. She's going to get destroyed. I'm going with the GOAT, Valentina Shevchenko.
All right, Jay, who you got?
It might, the odds don't reflect it. And maybe it's because of the last performance when I actually also scored the fight for Santos, but I'm fine with Shevchenko getting the nod. That's neither here nor there. But the odds don't reflect it. Like Valentina Shevchenko was like minus 600 over Grasso 450 or so, depending on the book you're looking at. I don't feel like it's that kind of fight. I feel like this is one of those Shevchenko 1,000, 1150, 1250, 1400 kind of fights. Because I also look at Alexa Grasso and know she doesn't have the power to sting you. Doesn't have the grappling chops to catch you. Doesn't have the surprise ability. And that besides, you know, the physical prowess, the pushing back from the unstoppable force, irresistible object kind of thing like that, it's just, you look at Alexa Grasso, and yes, she's an excellent fighter. She's won 4 in a row. A couple of them are legitimate top flight names. I mean, Vivian Rougeau, Macy Barber, or, you know, Barber's a top 15, or Joanne Wood flutters between wherever she is in the division. But then you look at her performances against women that were smaller or her same size. It's hard to look at 115 and what she had done, Grasso done at 115, and then apply it to what's going to happen at 125 until you realize Valentina Shevchenko is not a kickboxer. That's not her best game. I think she scored a takedown in her last how many fights? It's remarkable. Her ground game is her best strength right now. I mean, she hit 7 takedowns on Jessica Andrade in the span of like 7 minutes and was just tossing her around, doing whatever she wanted to a brute force that we know what Andrade can do. Jennifer Maia, I mean, besides that first round where I was like, oh boy, Jennifer Maia won the first round. What's going to happen? And then she just got tossed around for the rest of it. I don't know what Grasso has that the other women that Shevchenko has dominated or finished didn't already bring to the table. So if I had to make a prediction on the type of the finish, which I'm going to say this will be her first submission since she did all of those horrible things to Priscilla Cachoeira a long time ago at 125. I think that she's going to just say, you know, you have pretty good hands. We're going to not let any of that happen. I'm going to Bill Belichick you. I'm going to take away your best weapon and shut it out of the entire equation and just be like, here we go. We're on the ground. Good luck. And within 3 rounds, she's going to get the tap. Grasso's going to try and stand up and, you know, post on a knee and give up her back. And Valentina's going to get her hook underneath side, drag her down and choke her out. That kind of thing where it's just like the relentless where, remember when Poirier fought Khabib and he says to his corner between rounds, I can't get this guy off of me. Grasso's too nice. She won't say that, but she'll be thinking it. And that's why I have Shevchenko winning by sub.
All right, fellas. So
you're just going to say it in Spanish, Jay.
Yeah. I don't know how, I don't speak Spanish, Baxter.
You ate all the cheese?
see, I don't know if I really can add much else to this discussion, because for me it's more of a question of what does Valentina feel like doing on Saturday. Like, she's going to be faced with a smaller fighter who doesn't particularly excel in any one way athletically. Like, she's not blindingly fast. She's not
like Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, she's not overwhelmingly strong. At least Marvin Vettori has a good combination of brute force and grappling ability that can get him by certain matchups.
I just want to know what Marvin Vettori did to Serg, because that's just the name on the tip of his tongue when he wants to talk about nondescript mediocrity. Yep. Like, driving down the street and he sees a McDonald's, he's like, that's the Marvin Vettori of hamburgers. Fuck that place.
The thing about Marvin Vettori is that Marvin Vettori is great. He's just not, he's good, but he's not great anywhere. So he's just one of those guys that this dude is a solid grappler. He is a solid striker. He is not good enough to ever get gold anywhere. I don't believe so. Unless he goes to Bellator.
On all
He'll
the
get the belt
UFC
over there.
stats.
Thing is with Grosso,
Because he lives in Huntington Beach.
like she's like Grosso is a good, by UFC standards, she's a good boxer. But they're better ones that Valentina has faced. Holly Holm, for instance, like Serge mentioned. You even look at someone like Joanna, another flyweight that came up to fight her and primarily a kickboxer. She had no issue with that. Jessica I got head kicked to death when she tried to employ a boxing game against Valentina. And the thing is, as Jay mentioned, like Valentina's grappling might be her best thing. That might be the best thing that she has to offer. This is the same woman who had no problem submitting Juliana Pena. That had zero issue with that years ago. And she's only gotten better since. I honestly don't know what to pick in this fight besides Valentina winning. I can see a scenario where Grosso is part of the eternal UFC highlight reel with some sort of spinning back kick to the liver or something like that, and she just drops. I can see Valentina taking out her lead leg. She wants to step in hard on the jab, and that lead leg gets kicked out, and we got, just like your man did at one over the weekend. I can see that same thing happening to Grosso. I can see Valentina saying, you know what, I don't feel like having a fist come anywhere near my face because I don't feel like going to my after party with any bruises. So I'm just going to throw her on the floor and I'm going to smack her around and I'm going to turn her into a pretzel. I see any of those scenarios happening. The one scenario I don't see happening is Grosso standing there or on her back in any position in the 5th round. That's not going to happen. I don't think we'll hear the final bell and Alexa Grosso is standing there like, hey, let's just read this decision. The judges are going to have an early night. Well, they got to fight after that. They're going to be able to take a bathroom break. Let's just put it that way. All right, gentlemen. Now this is the one that I know we really want to talk about. Jay, you'll kick this one off. Jon Jones versus Cyril Gane for the very much disputed heavyweight title. Who you got?
I don't know if I'm ready. Like, I feel surprised that it is now Monday afternoon to evening my time, and it's Jon Jones fight week. It's Jon Jones fight week. The last time Jon Jones fought, I was in the building for, because it was before COVID. I was hanging out with that guy right there. And it was a wild night, and I scored it for Jon Jones, and then I watched it again later and went, no, Reyes won 1, 2, 3. But you know, you're live, you're cage side, you see things differently from an angle. I don't know if I can ever pick against Jon Jones, even with the performances that he had, even going up in weight against a guy who will have the longest reach that Jon Jones has ever faced off against in the cage, who is a savvy technical striker who has decent power, but it's more attritional than being able to really sting him. Because that was the big question about Jones. What happens when he fights Rumble Johnson? That was the one, rest in peace, Rumble Johnson. That was the one fight that were like, well, Rumble has that equalizing power. So what is Jon Jones going to do when he gets hit by that? Well, that's not this fight. That Gane is going to hit maybe statistically harder because he has more weight to put behind his kicks and punches and stuff like that. But this is Jon Jones. And this is Jon Jones, who I think has still been going. I think he's been training hard. I think the training partners are, I believe the training partners are a size and not skill varietal to bring in. I don't believe
that's definitely demonstrably true.
Yes, because I believe if he really wanted something like that, he would have gotten some like a 6'6" Dutch guy. But it's not. That's not what it's not what he wanted. And man, I don't know. I look at what Cyril Gane brings to the table, and I look at the Ngannou fight and Sadiq Youssef, I bless you, Sadiq Youssef, for making your unprofessional pick videos, because I feel like I'm going to have to steal one of the things you said, is that Francis Ngannou learned how to wrestle backstage before the fight, and that Jon Jones has been preparing since the day before, so he's going to have the advantage for the wrestling. I just see when Jon Jones gets a hold of Cyril Gane, when Jon Jones really wants to take you down, it's almost diabolical. Like it's a body lock to an inside trip. You're like, oh, we're going this way, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not, a blast double necessarily, and it's something that Jones does that it's different than most fighters. And I can't pick against Jon Jones. I think he's going to win a decision. I think he's going to be the number one pound for pound fighter again. And I think that we're going to be wondering what's next for the guy after the fight, because what I'm more wondering about than how this fight's going to play out is if this is a GSP situation. If this is I just wanted to do it, and I'm here and I can make it. So yeah, I'm going to go with Jones by decision in a fairly grapple heavy, fun, rangy striking to inside pocket, and then the takedowns ensue, and it goes from there. And I am really looking forward to your guys' analysis, because seeing your faces, there's going to be some differences, and I am excited for it.
All right, Ben, who you got?
Like, I'm glad I'm able to talk now before blood starts coming out of my nose, because Jay Petrie's out of his goddamn mind.
I know. I am so excited.
I talked about this fight for half an hour yesterday. I'm going to condense it way the hell down. But here's the thing. I've only had actual scouting notes on Jon Jones for the 5 years I've been doing this professionally, but mental notes, obviously I've had them forever. And my mental notes on Jon Jones are he's one of the best wrestlers in MMA history. It's an unorthodox takedown game, but kind of like his striking game is unorthodox. It's undeniably effective. Like Shevchenko in his prime, he was probably the best striker and the best wrestler in his division. When did I decide that? I decided that Jon Jones was a great wrestler over a decade ago, when he came into the UFC and threw around Andre Guzmão and Stephan Bonner. When he hit like a Karl Gotch style gut wrench on Bonner and threw him through the air, I was like, oh, this skinny dude is actually strong as fuck. And his striking game consists of nothing but spinning elbows. I can't wait to see what he turns into. Like, the last time I thought Jon Jones was a great wrestler was the first Cormier fight 8 years ago, where he shut down Cormier's takedown game. Cormier, another one of the greatest wrestlers in MMA history, and took him down once late in the fight just to rub nuts in his face and show that he could. I mean, the start of their rivalry was Jones going, I bet I can take you down. Almost the only thing you could do to make Daniel Cormier mad. Like, one of the most famously nice dudes in the history of the sport, but if you're going to pick at his wrestling, skills, you're going to get him mad. All of that is so long ago. Now we're at the point where Jon Jones is coming back 3 years off of what arguably should be a 2-fight losing streak. And the main problem is about a third of the people that I talk to think he should have lost to Thiago Santos. And about 2/3 of the people I talk to think he should have lost to Dominic Reyes. But the Santos fight is the problem, because for some strange reason, he decided to get in a leg kicking contest with maybe the guy with the nastiest leg kicks in the sport, and obstinately refused to bring the fight to the ground. He was fighting a smaller man with terrible takedown defense. This should have been
and no
an
knees.
easy night at the office. And instead it turned into this grueling fight that hampered Jones's career and wrecked Santos's career. Like, Santos was never the same fighter again, because they both blew their knees out that night. But what in my mind makes me think that Jones can or will pursue the takedown against Gane?
Well, the Anthony Smith fight, though, you got to give him the latter part of the fight. He got him down once, and that was it for the third round, fourth round, and fifth round.
He did. I mean, that was over 4 years ago. Since then,
not 9.
And interestingly, that's where another of my notes on Jones changed, because going into the Anthony Smith fight, I thought Jon Jones is one of the 3 or 4 smartest fighters in the history of the sport. He has one of the smartest coaches in the game and pursues his game plans to the letter. Like GSP, DJ level, Jon Jones, like those three are the three that just left everything as airtight as possible in the cage. The Anthony Smith fight was the first time I saw him make a bad mistake. He committed a foul where if Anthony Smith was a dick, Jones would have lost the title that night. Next fight after that, he has just the weird game plan against Santos and makes what should have been an easy fight closer than it should have been. Even if he watched the Ngannou fight and said, okay, I need to wrestle this dude. What makes me think he's going to do it? What makes me think he can at this point? He was never a guy with a shot from the outside. For as incredible an athlete he is, he's not fast. Like his hands and feet are not fast. He never had a blast double from the outside. It's always been tall man takedowns. Jay pointed it out. Inside trip from the body lock, or gets one underhook and just tips a man over and then elbows the living shit out of him. But that's stuff he did in 2013. There's no indication that that's who he is anymore, and there's no indication that he should be able to get tall man takedowns on a man who's going to be taller and heavier. Like we're not talking about, like the ghost of Rampage Jackson anymore. We're talking about a guy who is 6'5" and 250 pounds of muscle. I don't know if Jones is going to be willing or able to make this no wrestling match. And if it's not, I've yet to see anyone beat Ciryl Gane in the striking match. You get your choice. If you let yourself be snake charmed, like Rosenstrike and Volkov did, you spend 25 minutes watching Gane's feet and having a terrible fight. If you force the issue, like Derek Lewis or Tai Tuivasa, you end up staring at the lights in 2 rounds. That's going to be Jones's choice. And Jones still is one of the most defensively sound fighters in the sport. He still has an all-time great chin. I mean, he's been hard to hit cleanly, and he's been literally impossible to hurt. Like, he's never even been rocked in any of his fights. So I think this goes to the final horn, but I think Jones loses, and I think this goes back to, it's going to look like a Ciryl Gane fight. It's not going to be exciting. It's going to let all the air out of the building. The UFC announcer table that's just got the hype balloon ready to pop and let fly all around the room, if Jones does anything exciting, is going to be really disappointed because Jones isn't going to do anything exciting. Give me Gane in kind of a dull decision.
Ben, the only pushback I'm going to give on just one of those last statements is that there's at least one commentator that will be thrilled to see it play out that way. Serge, who you got?
Look, man, you guys both make some great points. Ben, I absolutely am leaning towards how you're feeling about this matchup. And the reason I say that is this. Ever since Jon Jones broke his toe, almost had his toe ripped off against Chael Sonnen, his wrestling has almost been non-existent.
I pay $75 not to look at that man's feet. I'm sorry, continue.
but like I said, it's like when we're seeing somebody, his wrestling has been non-existent. Who has he struggled with in the past? Especially the first time around, we're looking at people with height and length. Those 2 guys that we say he lost to were the tallest and the longest reach to that point, aside from Alexander Gustafsson. And we saw what Alexander Gustafsson did to him in that first fight that they had. Length absolutely bothers him. He is not, like I said, I go back to that one quote, like he isn't, he is who we thought he was type of thing, but that dude isn't walking through that door anymore. I haven't seen that Jon Jones throwing people around. And like you said, it's been about 8 years since I've seen him actually have solid wrestling. I am somebody who has said time and time again, I'll be honest with you guys, I think that is gone. He's always struggled with guys with height and reach. And now he's going to go height, reach, and size. You have dudes out here looking at, and they're also saying that, Jon is such a creative striker. He is going to outstrike the champion kickboxer. You mean to tell me that you guys think what a couple, spinning back fists and shit, he's all of a sudden going to be a better kickboxer than Ciryl Gane? And look, I have a reason to believe that at the end of the day for Ciryl Gane, if you're going in there against Francis Ngannou, because everybody wants to say, well, he was taken down, right? He goes in there against Francis Ngannou and a guy who he probably didn't anticipate at all was going to take him down. They probably didn't, drill takedowns. They probably didn't do any of that. So I'm sure he was unprepared. if he's going in against Jon Jones, a huge proportion of his camp is going to be takedown defense and movement. And like you said as well, he is so almost like stuck in the mud, right? He plots forward. It's not the same guy that we used to see jumping around, throwing spinning back fist. He kind of plots around now and almost follows his opponents. He's walking forward. He's plotting. He's throwing shots. So you mean to tell me you're going to sit here and try to plot and chase a bigger guy who's cutting angles on you like Vasily Lomachenko? Psh, good luck. I agree with you. I think this is going to be a Cyril Gane-esque fight. It is going to be either a boring decision where Cyril Gane just schooling him, or B, Ben, you said it, you got two choices. You're going to get your face boxed off, or you're going to get knocked out. If he runs in there all aggressive, like I'm going to go out here and just take this dude down, or I'm going to engage with him, because we already know Jon Jones against Glover Teixeira. He wants to prove I'm the bigger, tougher guy. I can stand in here and kick your ass. He does that with everybody. This is your Daniel Cormier. I'm going to out-wrestle you. So you mean to tell me he's going to go out here and say, I bet you I could outstrike this guy? You're going to get your ass whooped. I'm absolutely going with Cyril Gane to win this fight in either a lopsided decision or a knockout.
Man, I swear I've been thinking about this fight a whole lot, and my thoughts have changed like 5 or 6 times just listening to you three talk. And as I'm saying stuff now, I don't know what direction I'm going to lean in, but I'll say this. I definitely have, and I'll figure it out by the time I finish, rambling on for a little bit. But I think I know, Serge, I said this to you on your show a couple weeks ago, and I definitely said it to Jay and Ben a gazillion times. The last few fights of Jon Jones at light heavyweight was a very unmotivated Jon Jones who was very bored by whoever was in front of him, and by his own admission did not approach at least some of those fights correctly. We saw the rematch with Alexander Gustafsson. It looked nothing like the first time they fought, and Jones ran through him like he was hot knife.
Totally different Gus too, though. At that point.
Yeah. But was it more so a different Gus, or more, or at least in part due?
I mean, by that point in time, we saw Gus get knocked out like twice.
Yeah. So at the same time, we have Jones, who has spent a large part of his career sort of unchallenged in a way, at least mentally, like he just didn't feel like training until, like, this is the same guy who was supposed to fight Rumble Johnson and went out drinking and doing coke or whatever, getting into a car accident like 2 weeks before that fight and putting it off. Before the first Cormier fight, says
Rumble was going to win that fight.
He said that he did coke or something like a week before that fight. So this is a guy who hasn't taken his own career very seriously. How seriously is he taking this? And I that's the question for me that needs to be answered. He's taken this time off to prepare his body correctly, presumably, right? So at least we'll see what he looks like with his shirt off on the scale and whatnot, and how that extra weight looks and what his final weight on that scale looks like. But at least checks one box. If you're going to move up in weight class, one thing to always say, don't do it as a tourist. Like, you prepare your body appropriately, and then you fight at that weight class as close to the size of other people in that class as you can. Right. So he's checked that box. But at the same time, it took 3 years to get to this point. It's very difficult for me to pick someone to win a fight if they haven't fought for 3 years against someone who's been very active in that time off.
Very top of the division at that.
Yeah. One thing that I think we all can agree on, and I know it's been said by at least a couple of you so far, as creative of a striker as Jon Jones is, as dynamic as some of his highlight reel has been, yeah, not quite. Against someone as technically skilled and very fundamental as Cyril Gane. Like, you're not a good striker compared to Cyril Gane. That's just it. That's just it. Now we're talking about mixed martial arts, so that changes wrinkles in the striking game. But will he be able to get Cyril Gane down? we have to at least respect the fact that Francis Ngannou is a guy who cuts to 265 and is like this monster of a human being. And maybe that had something to do with his ease in getting Ciryl Gane down, in addition to the surprise that Francis Ngannou was trying to take him down.
40 pounds on a guy helps.
Yeah. Jon Jones,
ginormous.
Jon Jones is not a small man by any means. Like, he's a big dude, but he's not a Francis Ngannou. Do those takedowns feel the same to Ciryl Gane? I don't think so. I don't know, man. I think what we're going to see is we're going to see Jon Jones lose for the first time legitimately. I do believe that Jon Jones is motivated. I do believe that he is training as appropriately as he can, despite the quality of his training partners. I'm sure we're not seeing the real, like, some of the real sessions that are going into, and even his training camp is set up more like a boxing camp, which has proven effective throughout the sport for 100+ years, right?
Yeah.
But we're also talking about a guy who's 35 with a 3-year layoff. At 35, you don't just pick up where you left off like you did when you were 25. We might be seeing age, wear and tear, inactivity, hubris, and a lot of the other flaws that the current version of Jon Jones could present manifest itself against Ciryl Gane. Man, I might change my pick before the fight starts, but as of right now, Ciryl Gane wins by knockout. I think I'm thinking about when he fought Lyoto Machida. The shots that Machida was able to get off on him when he kind of didn't have the feel of his, the feel of his striking.
Ciryl hits him with those shots.
He's not much of a better striker now than he was then. He's not that much improved from there.
Nope.
Because he hasn't allowed himself to challenge and train.
Also, he might have to taken a step back, to be fair, because he's nowhere near as creative with his striking as he used to be.
Yeah, he's so conservative with it, and Ciryl Gane should win this one. I think fourth round. I think Jones goes out. That's my pick. So, fellas, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. An epic long show with an even more epic long preparation for it, because we had to change so many things before and we started so late. But anyway, you guys are watching this now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Big thanks to Serg for jumping on the show. Can't wait to have you on again. You can check out his work on The Scrap and also his show, The Fight Podcast. So good programming, good man. Happy to have you. Can't wait to have you come back. Ben and Jay, you can find their work on Sherdog.com. And of course, you can find my work on MMA On Point. Remember, stay beautiful, stay positive, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.